Jason, what's up, man? Glad
What's
to be
up,
sitting
Ryan?
down here
For
with
sure,
you in
man.
person.
Yeah, man. Thanks for this opportunity, man.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I've been following you for, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 years. I'll tell you this. Initially, I didn't like you.
Really?
Yeah,
Why is
and
that?
it wasn't you personally. I didn't like what you were saying.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I think it was Cry Like a Man. I saw that.
Yes.
I'm like, what is this?
Yeah,
What
man.
is this?
Yeah.
But the reason I do like what you have to say, the more I followed you and got to know you a little bit, is there's a lot of like fake alpha machismo type stuff out there in the world right now. And you're the antithesis of that. But I don't think anybody would doubt that you are a man or manly. And so it's very refreshing in this alpha age, if you will.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I would not have written Cry Like a Man 4 years prior to when I did. I was the epitome of a hypermasculine male, or what I call today just a masculine male. My brothers were drug dealers, the one who passed, who was killed in 1993, was very serious. And so I've seen what it looks like to be a real alpha male, to be in control, to be dominant. But then I've seen the flip side of it, where there's no rest, no peace. Your mind is in constant fight or flight, and you're stuck in being the lion, and you can never reset back to the lamb, and it's no peace in that life. And so when I went through my mother's transition, when she developed dementia, and I was just, hard, man. Marriage was, we contemplated separating the year before my mother died. And because I did not know how to be anything else but masculine. And as a result of that, I couldn't communicate with my wife, be compassionate, or even a good listener to my children, because it was do it my way. I was the epitome of a disciplined dad. And it wasn't until I had to become a comprehensive man, which is basically a man who was courageous but also compassionate, strong, and sensitive. And this is the key, a man who can freely live from the good in his heart instead of his fears. So my fear with my mom was what? She's dying. I had to become more nurturing, compassionate, loving. And the problem with doing that with someone you love, your first love of your life pretty much is your mom, a good mother, and it brought forth sadness, a little depression. And what we fear the most, a lot of tears. And so it wasn't until I learned how to cry like a man that I actually become one. And my mother was literally my coach, greater than any martial arts I ever studied. I learned how to wage the war within and become what I needed to be. And that's why I'm here now, man. It's because of that transition, because I couldn't do what I'm doing now with the mindset I had prior.
Were you doing what you're doing now with that mindset, but just in a different capacity? Or, I mean, with the young men that you train and lead and coach? Yeah.
I did. And what's interesting, it didn't become what it is today until they saw a comprehensive man. When I started developing it in 2006, man, I was hardcore. I mean, the way I came up, we didn't have mats. I hate that I found jiu-jitsu so late in my life, because I love it, you know what I mean? But the arts I've trained in, especially in Detroit where we are now, man, the teacher, one of my teachers, Kajana, he was a Vietnam War vet. And so we studied what he called Kempo, but it wasn't. Like, you look at what we did compared to what you see, I'm like, this isn't what we learned. And so I was hard, man. We used real knives. Of course, the blades weren't razor sharp, but his whole philosophy is, I need to create the fear you're going to feel when someone comes at you. And I get that.
Yeah,
like, I've seen guys' hands cut open with barbecue, the forks you use to turn sausage. He was like, well, what if your uncle gets drunk and want to fight you? We was like, seriously? No, I'm serious, man. He would have you come at you. And there was no choreography. I couldn't say, grab my lapel or come at me this way or come at me that way. He called that choreography.
That's a good description of it. You see a lot of that, the performative side of martial arts.
And that's cool for drilling and
sure.
teaching. His whole thing is the person in front of you should be able to swing and strike at will, and you'll be able to deal with it. So that's my mentality coming into helping boys. And in my city, it was majority all black boys. So at the time, Brian, man, it was all boot camp programs and scare straight programs. You know, when you go into the prisons with the kids who are mischievous or having issues in school, the prisoner's job there is to scare them into getting on a straight path. The problem is it worked just for maybe a week. And I discovered real quickly when all of these boot camps started collapsing that you can't expect to heal a boy when you're re-traumatizing him.
Right. It doesn't even, it almost seems like the goal isn't to heal. Like I went through basic training. I was in the Army for National Guard and then in the Army for a little bit, but it wasn't designed to heal. It was designed to train, to follow orders, to follow directions, and to perform.
Yes, and the boys mastered performing. As soon as they got out, they went right back and they would say, Mr. Wilson, I did everything I had to do to get out of there. He says, but I'm more angry now. It wasn't until I saw that they didn't need more discipline, they needed more love. And what's crazy, man, is at the times, and this is the problem when different ethnic groups only look at the world through their cultural lens, you only think the problem exists amongst people who look like you. And when first video went viral in 2016, it has over 100 million views worldwide now. Our offices at the union, our nonprofit, which the Cave of Adullum is under, our phones wouldn't stop ringing, man, for 2 days. And it wasn't black men, majority black men calling in. It was my brothers from another mother, my white brothers, Asian, Australian. I mean, crying to women, saying, I wish my coach would have gave me that opportunity to express what I was feeling. Now, because of that, I have issues with abuse. You know, and so for these men, and these are war vets, I had special ops call. Says, man, I've never seen this type of coaching. And for me, it was just natural because for so long, I figured it out since 2006. That's what's needed. But I didn't realize that inside every man, there's a broken boy that needs to be healed. And so I shifted, of course, in the cave. It's still serious. You know, we don't play around. If you got anxiety issues or focus issues, we train hard. And that's what takes you to that. We call it a moment on the mat, where if someone is choking you or I'm striking at you with a stick or something and you freeze up. And now you get hit once or twice, a padded stick, of course, until you get better.
Sure.
But still, you have that fear of failure. Then the voices start talking. You start hearing words that your father told you. You'll never be good. You messed up again. You start hearing what your teacher said, things like that. So now you freeze and you're done. You see it in boxing. A guy take a hit, boom, and it may hurt, but more so what's getting to him is his pride. Like, man, I can't deal with this guy because you won't let go of each blow. So we teach in the cave and we apply it to life. You have to let go of the blow because if you get hit, whether it's a layoff notice or whatever, or you get tapped out, you're rolling with someone, you got to let that go because you're going to keep getting tapped out if you keep thinking about it. And so we tie life principles to the Cave of Adullum, but I couldn't do that, man, when I was only just, this serious drill sergeant type of coach, But when I allowed boys and young men a safe space, they became vulnerable. They were able to release the trauma, the emotional pain so that they can become better men.
I think one thing you've done really well is that you're talking about vulnerability, a safe space. On the other side of the equation, there's individuals that have taken it so far that direction. I think you talk about the lion and the lamb, so far towards the lamb that they can't be dangerous, that they can't be capable, that they can't be strong. And so they're, for lack of a better term, crying all the time, looking for things to be wrong, microaggressions against me, and they've just become so overly sensitive. But I feel like you've done a good job of finding the ground where people can work best.
Yeah, man, you hit it right on the head, man. I had a conversation with a few guys, and it was similar to that. They were saying, well, wait a minute, you're telling us that we should be vulnerable, but then you're telling us we need to be assertive.
Right.
I say, yeah, you have to be both. That's the lion and the lamb philosophy. Even in jiu-jitsu, if I meet your push with push, That's a problem. One of us going to wear down.
Sure.
I meet your push with pull. It puts me in control and I could dominate you. I don't always fight force with force. It's the same thing in reality. You know, sometimes the lamb may look soft, but it's setting you up for the lion. But when you're over anything, when you're too much of this and hyper that, that's a problem. I have to get with my son because I taught him how to freely express how he feels. I said, you do not, however, you cannot become hypersensitive. Because in a moment where you need to be vigilant and you allow that second of that emotion of fear, anxiety, or sorrow to overcome you and someone's trying to rob you, you're dead.
Right.
Okay? So you have to learn how sorrow is great. You know, me as a follower of Yeshua or Jesus, the Bible says that godly sorrow brings forth change or repentance. A lot of times you have the other extreme where people don't want to think on things that are bad or could bring them down. They say that's toxic or negative emotions. If I offended my wife or was short with her, I need to sit with that sorrow in my meditation time so that I can change and reconcile what I did. But you're right, man. You're no good to society if you're milksop or soft all the time. No one should be milksop, I'm sorry, at any time. You know, the word nice is really not a good word. It borderlines naivety. You want to be kind and gentle. And then, you know, I've seen men where they embrace this passive mode. I talk about it in Battle Cry. It's called Purging Passivity, where you think it's honorable to digress in a situation where you need to be assertive. But what's really happening is that you being scared or fearful of letting that lion loose. You know, some men I know, especially in jiu-jitsu, a good friend of mine, Xander Heinen, he's a Marcelo Garcia black belt. Man, this guy is huge, right? I call him Bruce Banner right before he turns into the Hulk. That's how big Xander. I'm serious, man. He's like 6'4", 260, 70 pounds. And I said, man, you know, how does it feel to be so big and you can just dominate? But sometimes he pulls back because he's so strong, so dominant, it seems unfair. So what I learned from Kajana, I was sparring with him, man, and here it is trying to be this humble guy. And he says, you're not trying to hit me. I said, yes, I am. He says, let's go. He says, Kumite. So we start sparring and stuff. And I go out to bring a strike to his face. He purposefully act like he was maneuvering, but brought his face back to my punch, and I moved my fist. I said, whoa, you know, what's going on? He says, that's called false humility. He says, the fact that we're fighting and you're not trying to hit me, something is wrong there. He says, you got to learn how to live in the moment. It's okay to reset back to being kind and being a good person, whatever you may have. But when you're fighting, when you're negotiating, when you're debating, whatever you're doing, be in that moment. And so I caught myself because I'm big and I can be dominant. I would set back because I didn't like feeling that lion. The flip side, my man, is that when we don't know how to rule that lion when he comes out, we end up hurting people we love and even ourselves. And that's why when you digress to just being this lamb in lamb mode all the time, eventually that lion is going to come out because it's natural.
Right.
And that's what happens.
In deconstructive ways.
When we hit, I got into it with my wife, man. Instead of just expressing how I felt, I hit my refrigerator. It's a dent still to this day. I won't replace it because the way my wife looked in that moment when I was yelling at her, she was just saying she wanted to spend more time with me, but I heard something different, that I was doing something wrong again. I said, man, I can't never do nothing right, and hit the refrigerator. And she kept yelling, and we going back and forth, and I just got demonstrative. Wasn't used to this line. I was passive aggressive. When I saw my wife break down in front of me, just her spirit decline, I said, this will never happen again. I'm supposed to be your protector. You will never fear being in front of me. And she doesn't, but in that moment, I was very wrong. And so I started exuding this lion when he was needed. When someone would disrespect me, you know how you have people say sly remarks and you kind of let it go. I don't do that anymore. I say, hey, my man, I don't want to take anything out of context, but what did you mean when you said that? And I deal with it right there. If I have bad service at a restaurant, I say, excuse me, I'm spending good money for this meal, and my wife and I would like to enjoy our experience. Can you please replace yourself with someone else who actually would like to give me a good time? I don't take none of that at home no more. See, that's the problem when you stay in lamb mode. The world needs the lion and the lamb, and so you can't be all lion, as you know. We already seen what that looked like.
Right.
And not only is it's not healthy for the mind, bro, because you're stuck in fight or flight response. The lion as the animal sleeps almost 20 hours a day. He's not fighting all the time. He's chilling. He's in lamb mode. But let the hyenas invade the pride. Now he and his boys wake up and defend.
Right.
But then when he killed all the hyenas or run them off, what'd he do? Back to lamb mode. You see what I'm saying? And so you're
Absolutely.
right, man. I feel you, especially in this era of being emotionally stable and free. We as men have to be careful to not allow our fears, lack of confidence, and other things to make us stay in lamb mode.
I'm curious about the restaurant scenario you just said, because I think it'd be easy to say, oh, it's fine, just let it go. Maybe your wife does say
Man,
that.
I used to say it,
Yeah.
man.
So how do you reconcile that when there are things where it's like, yeah, I can let this go, no big deal. What's your thought process behind
When
that?
it bothers you. You know what I mean? So some things you gotta let go. It's like everything isn't worth a fight, okay? But some things, if you're spending, like my wife loves fine dining, and we enjoy the experience, so we pay good money.
Yeah.
So anything that bothers you in such a way that even when you get in the car, you're still pissed off. You feel me?
Yes.
That's when you should have said something in that moment. Now, I'm not disrespectful.
Right. Sure. Yeah. There's a difference.
And what's amazing, I take my hat off to people who serve, like waitresses and waiters, whomever, whatever position you're in, because they have to also put aside what they're dealing with in their real lives
Right.
to make you have a great experience. That's tough, especially when you don't have someone to really, I guess, in the moment when I'm able to let them know the experience that I'm receiving isn't what I expect. Man, almost always, and I'm not lying, I'm serious. They would say, oh my God, can you tell something is wrong? One waitress told me that her daughter, she hates having to drop her daughter off with her mother, and it hurts her that she can't spend time with her because she has to work 2 jobs. Another guy was nervous because he didn't know if he was going to get into college. And I told him the same thing. I said, hey, man, you probably want to replace yourself with someone because I really want to enjoy this. And he shared with me his heart. I said, cool. I said, what's your faith? Because I don't want to infringe on your beliefs. He says, well, I'm a Christian. I said, cool. I said, let's pray real quick. I said, but we're not going to make it obvious because I'm not religious, man, okay? Me and my wife grabbed our menus. I said, we're going to we're ordering, but I'm about to pray for you. I started praying for him. Man,
verbally?
Yes.
Okay.
I said, Father, help this, let him not worry about what he can't control, all this other stuff. And we said, amen. I said, man, thank you, sir. Do you know he gave me the best service I ever received?
Is that right?
Because I spoke up. It not only made me feel better, but it helped the person.
Yeah, you gave him an opportunity.
Yeah. And a lot of people we don't walk around with mirrors, man. You see what I'm saying? And so it's like, cool, this man showed me that I need to learn how to let go of the blow, like I was talking about earlier, when I'm at work. It is very, very, very hard to do, especially when you have rude customers. But it was a principle that, my actions taught that young man. And I said, he gave me one of the best services I ever had with my wife. And ever since then, man, I stopped just letting things go. Anything people used to say sly remarks, wouldn't say it to my face, or be blunt with it because it could turn out the wrong way. I wasn't as controlled as I am now. And I wasn't no thug. Don't get me wrong. I was like with Tupac. He said, I ain't a killer, but don't push me. Okay. And I saw how I would come home and I would be short with my family. I'd have no patience because of what someone else did or said that I knew wasn't right. It was slick. And so I just said, hey, man, maybe I'm reading this wrong, but it offended me the way you said that in this meeting. Can you please clarify exactly what you meant so that we can move forward in our friendship, or business dealings? I don't hold that in no more, man, but I don't disrespect anyone like that. So
It's really refreshing because I think what most people do is they just sweep everything under the rug, and pretty soon it's noticeable.
and we
right?
trip
Like
over
you
it,
can't,
right?
right? Like it elevates off the ground a
Yeah,
little bit. There's a
man.
lump on there. Yeah, I mean you
Yeah.
can't. It's like the what is the adage with the pea and the mattress, and she stacks up mattresses and can still feel it, or something like that.
Yeah, man.
But it's you let that stuff add up. And you also said something interesting. You said negative emotions, that people say negative emotions. I'm really curious about your take on this because I don't personally think there are negative emotions. Like anger isn't a negative emotion. Whether you believe that we have evolved into who we are or created into who we are, we have emotions for a reason, even the so-called negative ones. They're there to serve us. It's how we respond to those emotions that dictate whether or not it's negative or positive.
I completely agree. Like, anger is not a bad emotion at all. Uh, again, I'm not religious, but, it's written that the scriptures say, be angry, but do not sin. So it says, be angry. The thing about anger, it borders real, it's a fine line between our type of anger and righteous anger. So you want to make sure you're using anger against injustice, against people who are mistreated. Anger sparked many movements in this world. And so it's not a bad emotion like you're saying. However, if we let that emotion master us instead of us ruling it, that's when our actions become bad.
Yeah, and it's easy, I think, by default to slip into that because there are so many people, myself included. I think your story is probably similar in a lot of ways, that I didn't really have a role model for learning how to master these emotions. I mean, I got into football when I was young, which was a good outlet because I got to hit things and people, but it still wasn't as channeling as I think it could have been.
Absolutely, man. That's a good point you brought up. Like football, for instance. So I mentor a few NFL players, and you notice that domestic abuse is high in the NFL. But what do you tell these players to do when they're on the field? Release the anger, hit it
Right,
hard, let go
hard.
of what you're dealing with. So what happens when you're feeling that anger again? You start hitting things. So even in martial arts, every art that I've studied, I never, in the early years, I did release anger through the fighting and training, but I learned that it was to my own detriment when I did that. Not only could I injure myself, but also I could hurt someone who's basically, I got some of my teeth knocked out just from allowing a guy to work on his elbows. But he got caught in his emotions because we were rushing him. We had to learn how to fight multiple people for real. No, and because what it shows you immediately is that you're going to get hit.
Oh yeah.
This isn't movie stuff. So it took him back to his childhood. Something had happened. And man, prior to this exercise, he got on the floor in the fetal position and just stayed there when we rushed him. The second time, he says that's not going to happen. So he allowed the emotion of anger and fear to dominate him. So I just gave him myself a body. I wanted to see if he could throw me or whatever. And he hit and knocked my teeth out of this side over here. And that's what happens, man, when we don't know how to master these emotions. But in that moment, man, when you have people who only can use anger in those type of moments, that's when you typically do the most damage and hurt people. For me, my anger, when I'm helping boys, I ask them all the time, I say, am I angry? And they be like, no, sir, I says, I'm very angry. This is really why. I says, I'm tired of so many of you guys getting lured away from the path that you should walk on. I said, that's why I'm here right now. Not because just I love the arts or whatever I do. It's because I'm angry and I want you guys to win. And it's a scene in the Avengers that I always show when I'm speaking. You remember the scene when I think it was the first Avengers, when the monster came and Iron Man told Captain America that Bruce Banner was coming when he
Oh
come.
yeah, yeah.
I love that scene because when Bruce gets off the motorcycle and the monster was coming, Captain America says, what did he say? He says, hey, Bruce Banner, you're not going to turn green? And he looked at Captain America. He says, that's my secret, Captain. You're not going to get angry or something like that.
Right.
He says, that's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry.
Right.
And so when we learn how to he figured out how to control the Hulk was to allow that lion to exist. The more he tried to suppress this beast in him, he couldn't control it. But when he realized, wait a minute, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, And that's when he was able to master it. So when we allow the lion to come out at the right moment, that's what makes me, I'm here now. Why? Because I'm angry. I hate the fact that men are confined to a limited definition of manhood. So when you reached out, I said, let's make this happen. It's not my excitement. I never wanted to do what I'm doing now. I wanted to be a music producer, man.
Is that right?
Yeah, man. Who says, hey, one day I'm going to be a motivator of men, I never said that.
Yeah.
That's what my calling is. And so my name Jason actually means healer.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so I'm angry because I don't like men losing their marriages. I'm tired of us leading in suicide. We die by suicide 3 times as likely as women. 9 out of 10 people who live to be over 100 are women. And I think over 70% of homicides in the U.S. are committed by men. Those are alarming statistics. And so I'm angry because I want our lives to change. When the man's heart and his mind can produce the right actions, this entire world will change. And so because of that, you can ask my wife, there always is a tone in me, undertone where I'm angry. But I'm at peace. It's not dominant.
Sure.
But I can easily access that beast when I need to. My goal is to stay in lamb mode, chill, as much as I can. But when stuff comes my way where that lion has to defend that pride or stand up or speak up against a teacher who may not understand that your child has a disability and they're not patient, you have to bring forth that beast. And so I've learned to become a comprehensive man, and that has helped me become a better teacher as well. Yeah.
How do you begin to do that? Because I know there's a lot of men who listen to this podcast or connect with you or me or probably both of us. There's a lot of overlap. Who are feeling like you're saying, where they're always the lion, they're always on, they're aggressive, they don't know how to control it, and yet, you're a pretty self-reflective individual. I think it takes that, but if that's all you ever know, how do you begin to switch and turn that corner?
That's a good question. I think it's chapter 3, my man. It's called Misconstrued Masculinity, a misunderstanding of what it means to be a man. And at the end of it, I tell men, because after each chapter, I give men an assignment, hey, this is what we're going to do in this training. And I purposefully wrote that like I'm coaching you. I didn't want you to read it like it's a book or a self-help book. That's not what this is. This is for you to learn how to apply it. So to answer your question, I tell men to run towards any situation that makes you feel non-masculine emotions.
Would say that again. That makes you feel what?
Non-masculine emotions.
Got it.
So we know masculinity is just an adjective. You look it up. It's a group of attributes: strength, boldness, aggression, whatever.
Sure.
It doesn't list compassion, nurturing, any of those things. So for me, it was my mom. For years, I saw her developing dementia. For years, I would avoid it. Why? Because of the other emotions I didn't want to have anything to do with. But I got to the place where I had no choice. And then I got forced into doing it. So now I tell men, this could be an aging parent. It could be a family member who looks up to you who has a disability. And it brings forth tears every time you see this person struggling because they're not what they used to be. It could be a going to a cancer unit. Inside of you, you desire to be this inspiration on this floor of young boys who need to see you, a man like you, but you don't go because of the heaviness of it. You're not really living the life that you can't get to the life you long for. So I tell men, always run to those battles. That's the real war. It's not out here. We can fight, defend ourselves, negotiate, protect our families, provide. That's stuff external. That's easy. The hardest thing for a man to do is deal with himself. And so I tell men, just go to that. Run to it like it's a burning building with your family in it. And then you're going to start breaking free. And a good example of this, man, is when Kobe Bryant and his daughter passed with, I think, 9 other people in the helicopter crash. You started seeing images online of Kobe. We didn't see the Mamba. We didn't see him dunking, being strong, dominant. We initially saw what? Images of him freely operating as a nurturer, kissing his daughters, loving his wife. And then the hashtag girl dad went viral. Then you hit the hashtag with over 1 point something million posts. It was men of all ethnicity posting images of them loving and nurturing their daughters. Because we've always been nurturers, but we've only allowed the world to see the nurturing that comes through provision and protection.
Right.
But never the nurturing that comes with a kiss, compassionately hugging your children, your son, whatever, allowing them the space to come talk to you and cry, the freedom in you crying and sharing your fears with your wife. And so when we get to that place, man, that's true liberation. And every man, we always will have that conflict, that war inside that we constantly throw the white flag of surrender to until we break free from emotional incarceration, man. And until then, for me, I use myself and a few others that I work with, there is no freedom. You know, a good friend of mine, his son had cancer, man, on the brain. One of my students. And this is, when I say alpha male, I mean the epitome. Alpha male, hard worker, beautiful family. You know, if there's a fight jumping off out here, I know he can shoot. He'll shoot with me. He'll do whatever is needed, we're going to work it out. Because in our city, I haven't seen a fist fight in years. Okay, maybe since I was a kid.
Right.
You know, that's why if you look at most, this is comical. I was just talking about this. If you look at most jiu-jitsu pictures or class pictures, you only see maybe like 3 or 4 black guys. Go to the gun range here, it's packed of black men.
Is that right?
Because that's our reality. Everyone here carries a gun. You know, and so I say that to say his son has cancer. Good friend of mine, tough. That alpha male could do nothing with that. You can't plan it. You can't snatch it out. And
you can't fix it.
You can't punch it out.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for him so much, and this blessed me. I called him and he said, I keep asking God, Jay, why you keep calling me? And he started crying. He wasn't mad. He just couldn't believe that it was okay for a man and another man to connect in such a way where we don't have to fear being vulnerable. And I never forgot this moment. He was overwhelmed and his son was with us. And his son was, you talking about a beautiful boy, articulate. I mean, he could be on the debate team at any school. And then he went to this because of what was going on. He didn't have the energy anymore. His father took a walk in front of our building, came back. I let him back in the parking lot, and he just broke down crying, and I hugged him. You know, I embraced him. I said, it's okay, let that go, because tears, Dr. William Frey discovered that tears from emotional stress or trauma not only release 98% water, but also stress hormones.
Really?
That's typically,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's typically why we feel better after we cry.
Interesting.
And so to let another strong man grab another strong man, it's okay, let that go, I'm here. And I just allowed him to weep. And what was real beautiful, his son saw it. And he was able to reset right after that back to the line. Why? Because now he had to drive an hour up north for the treatment and then drive another 2 hours back to Ohio. When I say this man's alpha male, he's alpha, like whatever has to be done is going to get done. But what he was missing was the lamb. So he can be comprehensive, free, more just available. You know what I mean? Because we check out, bro.
Yeah,
you know?
For sure.
My wife had 5 miscarriages between 2 children. I was emotionally checked out. Our last child was 5.5 months before they had to take her out, and she died. I didn't cry. I wasn't there for my wife emotionally. You know why? Because I couldn't allow myself to be vulnerable. But then Ed Milet shared it on the podcast we did. Someone asked him that, and he started tearing up because his wife had a miscarriage. But as men, when we suppress that, well, I just got to be strong. We're going to make it through it.
Right.
Next thing you know, what? You're snapping at the waitress. You're snapping at your boss, your coworkers. You're not patient with your kids. It's unhealthy to suppress it. And so when we get to that place, man, that's when, you experience life in a whole nother way.
I think this is why I initially struggled with your message, because our motto is protect, provide, preside.
That's it.
which is true. Like those are all things we need to be doing as
Yes.
men. But that isn't the entirety of what we should be doing.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of different ways to do it.
Exactly.
You know, there's also something I found, and I just had a very small lesson last week in this. I did a podcast a day after our pup had died, and I was emotional, like clearly emotional in the podcast. And I had one guy reach out, and he's like, "You shouldn't have done that episode. It was pathetic." That's the word he used. It was pathetic because you cried or you teared up or you got emotional. That was one guy, and that got to me a little bit, you know, because things get to you. But I didn't, you know, respond or anything. It's whatever. But then I started looking at my messages, and I had dozens and dozens and dozens and hundreds of guys who were saying, "Hey, I felt the pain in your voice. I appreciate you sharing that. I had this scenario happen. I had this situation happen. I had this thing. My dog died. My wife is going through a difficulty. I'm going through a divorce." And what I found, just in that small example, is that as we open up and we're willing to express that, not only is it good for us ourselves, but it gives permission for other guys to do the same thing. And they're not getting that permission anywhere else.
Well, I salute you for that, man. That was a big step. I mean, to lose. We talked about this prior to this, man. I can't imagine when it's time for my dog to go. Now I'm crying, man. Because I know I'm releasing toxins out my body, for one. But two, it's natural. It's normal. We have tear ducts for a reason. You know, women aren't the only ones with tear ducts. We have them too. And it's the person who responded that way, he just doesn't understand. And I promise you, if that man had an opportunity to have a safe space to release what he's holding on to, he'll get tears. I've never seen that fail. Some of the toughest men, care what ethnicity you are, you put them in a room where there's no judgment and they can share. They cry, they release, they're transparent, because that's the way it was supposed to be. You know, I named the cave of Adullum after, everyone knows about David, whether you read the Bible or not, how he slayed the giant Goliath. Right. David ran to the cave at Adullam from Saul, a king who was trying to kill him. And this is interesting. 400 men came to him who were distressed, in debt, and discontented with life. It's interesting. No one knows what happened in that cave. But when these men came out that cave, they were called mighty men of valor. So something happened in that cave. Transparency, talking, something happened. David was already the warrior. So of course they did some training.
Right.
For you to come out to wreck every nation around you so bad that when your son takes the kingdom, he doesn't have any wars his whole life because of what you did. You were some bad brothers, but you went a certain way. When men come together and are vulnerable, we can drop the guard finally and say, man, it hurt that my mother died. It hurt that I lost my best friend, my companion, my dog of 15 years. And no longer suppress those things. And like I was sharing with you, I tell a story in Battle Cry, a puppy named Kobe. You know, I used to love walking him. I was young. And one day he got away from me, and the leash was on his neck. He just playfully running down my block. And there was a group of teenagers there, and one of the guys went to step on the leash but stomped Kobe. And so I go pick up Kobe. He couldn't breathe. He was whining. And the teenagers laughed at me, man. And when I was riding it, I started crying as I was riding because I didn't cry then.
Still there.
I became angry because in my hood, was no tears. It was none of that. And so I plotted to hurt or kill the teenager who did that. I watched him. I saw what time he came home from school, which door he entered. I was going to try to hurt him because I did not know that men could release this pain through tears and crying and receive counsel. So imagine all this anger balled up in me. What do you think caused a man to snap and do crazy stuff? Because we do not allow ourselves time daily to release, to reflect, release, and reset. So we can rest. I call it the 4 R's in Battle Cry. Every day I do that. I reflect on what's bothering me. I reflect on the good as well. I release anything that cannot enhance or make me a better man
How do you do that? Is that just
through meditation.
okay?
And
Explain that
I
a little
break it
bit.
down. So, most meditation, you'll see, people there sit with their hands like this,
That's what I think of
Yeah,
when I
yeah,
think of
yeah, for
meditation.
sure.
Yeah,
And you have to be in a quiet area, the
right.
music or someone's talking. Listen, so now let the air
You got
go
the
through your
incense
ear.
burning
Oh,
and
for
all that
sure. And
stuff.
welcome the breeze, and the birds are so beautiful chirping. Now embrace life,
Right, right.
inhale. So that's cool. It couldn't serve me well because I live in chaos.
Mm,
Where I'm called to go is darkness. So I needed meditation. And again, I give props to one of my instructors, Kajana. We had to learn how to stay in a meditative state fighting. Mike Tyson alluded to it in one video. He says when he gets into the ring, he can't get emotional. He can't really allow that to happen. If you see his early fights, he was stoic, man.
right,
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
right.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Then he'd go back to the corner. Then go back. And you saw it. And I
Yeah.
said, wow, you see it. So the meditation I teach is called shalak, which is Hebrew for cast away.
Okay.
So when you inhale, you're thinking of these heavy things that are going on. You allow these thoughts to exist, but then you cast them away. You cast them away. I cast mine to the Most High. In a natural sense, you can just practice casting them away outside of your thoughts, okay? Allow it to exist. So say if you're fearing a layoff and everyone's getting laid off and now you feel that the next group will be you. You sit with that. You don't suppress it and analyze, okay, why am I feeling this way? Man, because we got these bills due, or my son has to go to college. Let's go a little deeper. But should I worry about that? Because before we were able to make it work. When should I tell my wife? So when you're allowing yourself to process it instead of suppressing it, now you have the capacity to respond instead of reacting to situations that are coming your way. And so we start with, we never meditate in a comfortable position. Because again, it's a war going on with your soul. Your soul wants everything peaceful and it's self-serving, okay? Like a lot of people want to be mentally strong, but the problem is the mind's goal is to protect you. But that's not always what's the best decision in every moment.
That's where like complacency and things like that might
Yeah,
seep
or
in.
running. Okay.
Sure. Get away from this environment.
But if a guy has a knife at my wife, I don't want to be protected. I want to protect her.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
understand?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the extreme. You have another one where a coworker may keep taking credit from something you're doing and they're getting pay raises, but you're too scared to stand up to them. That's another thing you have to deal with. So imagine being able to so let me go back. The reason we're in an uncomfortable position is to check the soul. So don't get in a position where it's hurting you. But where you start feeling, man, this is not very comfortable sitting with my legs folded because I'm not very flexible. So you'll tell your soul to saying, man, come up out of this. You know the voices we hear. Come on, this is stupid. You don't believe in this stuff anyway.
Yeah.
You rebuke that and say, this will not kill me. I need to wage this war right now within so that I can deal with what's around me. You will sit still. And you sit there. Next thing you know, you get past that. That's gone. Now you're allowing everything to come in. For me, people are so tired of religion, okay? That's one of the biggest issues. People who talk it, look the part, but you don't see any fruit of their labor. Okay, that's the biggest. That's why that's a whole nother topic. So for me, when I pray to the Most High God, I do not say what I want, ask for His help, and leave. So for me to incorporate prayer in my meditation, it allows it to be a conversation. Could you imagine we as parents, our boys or daughters keep coming up to us asking for advice and help in what they should do. As soon as we say, hey, they run away.
They leave.
Yeah, you're like, dude, this is confusing. This is
Right.
not a relationship.
Yeah, that's right. It's just one way at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah, good
And
point.
so it's religious. It's a habit. It looks spiritual, but there's no relationship.
What is I'll come back. Keep going. I'll come
And
back.
so
to that
anyway, so once you get to the reflection, you're able to release it. Casting away everything that's too heavy for you to deal with, because you can't solve nothing sleep. It benefits you none to be concerned about anything. And I have a saying, worrying only affects your health. And that's in a negative way. It doesn't benefit you at all.
Do you think, though, I want to push back on that a little bit.
Please.
Because I think, and maybe you wouldn't call it worrying, but I think I'll just say worrying. I think worrying about some things will lead to productive results if you allow it to.
So now there's a big difference between being concerned and worrying.
Got it. Okay.
Two completely different words. Absolutely, you better be concerned about some serious issues, or
Right.
there will be no change.
Right.
As we alluded to earlier, there is no anger if there is no concern. What made you mad? Oh, every life is cool, man. Enjoy it. No, I ain't. That's extreme.
Because
That's what we talked about before.
You wouldn't be angry if
Yeah,
you
that's
really believed
constant
that.
lamb mode.
Right.
Man, everything's cool.
Yeah.
No. Okay, that's not comprehensive manhood. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is if I have to go to sleep, me being concerned about getting a permit for a building to train my boys in is meaningless. I didn't say worry. I said being concerned. Because the most important thing at that moment when I'm sitting down getting ready for bed is to make sure I can release everything so that I can reset and rest.
Got it.
Not be concerned while I'm sleeping. Now my sleep is not pure. So you're 100% right, man. No, I said worrying specifically. When you wake up, practice the same thing, release, make sure you're good. And now let's pick this concern back up so that we can find a solution for it.
So you have reflect, release,
reset, and then rest.
So okay.
Those three allow me to rest, whether I'm in my bed, whether I'm here. Like just say if I was nervous before this interview, I would practice Shalak all the time. I'm sitting on this couch waiting for you to set up. I'm reflecting on why am I nervous? Well, I fear I may not sound good. I don't articulate the message well. Have you done so before? I can't remember when I really messed up. And if I do, it's called speaker's remorse, and that's normal. So why are you fearing anything? Why are you nervous? I shouldn't be nervous. Yeah. I released that.
Interesting.
Now I can reset, and I can live fully in this moment because none of that was there is visiting me now.
Yeah, that's a good point because I found that when I get nervous about things, let's say this podcast or going to speak in public or any number of things it could be, it's usually some external factor that really isn't within my control anyways. Like what will people think of me and what am I going to look okay? And what I found is if I just focus more on the actual importance of it. So for example, if I get nervous before we're going to do this podcast, what will the guys think? Well, no, you know what? All I care about is having the best conversation I can with you so that we can serve the mission and move it forward. Period. End of story, end of discussion, and the worry seems to melt away.
There you go. You're living in the moment. One of my instructors told me, I don't know who isn't a little nervous before public speaking.
Yeah.
Okay. He says, when you're seated at the table, you know how if you're at a convention or whatever, they start reading your bio and all of that.
Sure.
He says, stay at the table. Don't put yourself on stage and you're not there. When they call you up, stay in each step it takes to get to the stage. No need to be nervous about what you're going to do when you get there. When you arrive to the podium, stay in that moment. Look at the crowd. Be thankful that people are there to even hear you. Live in that moment. And then when you speak, you'll be free to live in that moment. If I feared, imagine the anxiety of being at the table. Oh my God, looking around. Anxiety in every step going to the podium. Anxiety looking at the podium, getting your nose together.
Yeah.
That's going to follow you. It's going to affect how you start your message. And so same thing in fighting. Let go of the blow, man. If I'm boxing you and you hit me, that's gone.
It's done.
If I stay there, here comes your left and right. Now I'm hit.
It's over.
Because I didn't let that go.
Right.
So here it is. You carry all that nervousness for no reason to that podium, and now you're speaking. And I want to thank, and then all of you are here, just and that's how you start your message instead of living in the moment.
I think when you're talking about letting go of the blow, it's. I think the challenge with it is that it's human nature to want to remember it so that it doesn't happen again. Right? Mm-hmm. If you punch me in the ribs, for example, I'm going to remember that and I'm going to favor that. All right, I'm going to guard my ribs, but I expose my head if I do that. So how do you fight against the human nature to want to protect yourself that way while you simultaneously expose yourself to other problems?
Again, rule your emotions. Master your emotions. Don't let them master you. A good example, I taught my recruits one day they were tired, man, after school. And I said, "What's wrong with you guys? We're tired, long day at school. Imagine hearing this from middle schoolers. This it's funny." I said, "Wait till you get a
Yeah,
job."
you had a long day. Tell
They
me
say,
about that long
what's
day.
funny when they say I had a long day. I be like, I said, "Wait a minute, you're here on time. Wait, what do you mean long day?" They said, "Well, I don't mean time. I just mean it was hard." I said, "Okay, cool." And I learned the lesson one day. We were training. We were doing floor drills, practicing jabs, elbows, and kicks. You had to go up and down the floor nonstop. Imagine being in a school, 90 degrees, training. The floor is drenched with your sweat. When I told my instructor, he says, "How are you doing?" I said, "I'm okay. I'm tired. Had a long day drywalling, but I'll make it." He says, "Good." He made that the hardest day I ever trained in my life. Imagine doing that for an hour and a half straight, punching, kicking nonstop in a hot room. I was slipping on my own sweat. What he taught me was that there was no need for me to say I'm tired when I had to get ready to fight. It can only hurt me, and it did initially. With my boys, they said, "I'm tired." I worked them that day. When they got done, I said, "Are you guys tired now?" "No, sir." I said, "When is the best time to be tired?" And one of the recruits said, "When I'm at home in bed, sir." But he got the message. So when
Right.
you're in school, don't be sitting at the desk like you can go to sleep. That's not the time for it. You tell the emotion of laziness or fatigue, there is no time for you here right now. I need to get an A on this upcoming test, so I must pay attention. That is over. We are tired, and I honor this fatigue when I can rest, but now I can't. So when you master your emotions, you let go of the blow. I have a chapter called Combat Communication, and every professional fighter does this. You download your opponent's moves and tendencies. So you throw a little jab out to see how he responds, a leg kick to see how he checks and see what he does. You say, okay, good. His defense is weak in this area. Or he doesn't feel that he has a good defense because he keeps moving on my fake. Okay? And a lot of times that's what happens in life because of emotions. If I'm throwing, this isn't even a jab right now. It's not.
It's just a little, just a
And
little
so
movement.
if say Joe Rogan was commentating, they'd be like, "What is Wilson doing? What kind of blow is that? What is that?" Now this becomes, you can categorize it when I do this and you move your head and then I knock you out with my right. Joe would say, "That was an awesome fake." That's what we do in life. We go for the fake blow because we don't let go of the one that really hit us before. So now all life has to do is present something that looks real. Now we can get hit. And that's why it's important. The way you do that is to learn how to rule your emotions. And that comes through, of course, training. Martial arts is a great tool. One of the best, I think, for us dealing with emotional stability if you have the right teacher. But also in life, practicing, the right tone, how to be assertive and not aggressive. There's two completely different things. You'll see a boxer who's aggressive. He's just swinging wild, right? See that one fighter, he's moving, then boom!
Bam.
That's assertiveness. It's a calculated action that leads to a result that you desire. Aggression is just power out of control. You're just wasting everything. Basically, it's fear-based, really.
Yeah, sure.
Because you're just swinging wild.
Hopefully
Form is
something
gone.
happens.
No form, nothing. I've seen guys who here, boom. Overhand right, lay him out. And that's what we teach is to be assertive. Aggression, emotions just running everywhere. So the bottom line is to wage that war within and deal with those emotions. Then you'll be able to let go of the blow and live in a moment so you can defend against the one that's coming.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about this. I would say generally men don't want to express their emotions, right? Generally, I think most men don't want to. Because they consider it weak. But as you're talking about it, it's actually the antithesis of it. You're actually dealing with something that is probably the hardest thing you'll ever have to deal with, which is dealing with your emotions. And that's not weakness. That's you being a man. That's you being strong because you're dealing with things you don't want to deal with.
That's you being human. That's what that is. And so it's only hard because we're not used to it. Now I'm free, I'm okay with it now. I don't care what no one thinks. First of all, can't nobody define manhood. Not right now. I don't see enough men living comprehensive. You see what I'm saying?
Explain the comprehensive man.
So basically, like I was saying before, it's a man who is comprehensive in who he is. I'm not just a masculine male. I'm courageous because masculinity is needed. Like we were saying, if we got caught in the fire in this house, we need them firemen to come and be masculine, kick this door down and rescue us.
Sure.
But we don't need them kicking elderly people. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
We need them to bust down the door and then grab nurturing, because your force could actually break some bones. That's the imperative. So being courageous and also compassionate, strong but sensitive, freely living from your heart instead of your fears of being perceived as being pusillanimous or weak. That's the issue. And so when we're able to really become comprehensive, more than masculine, we all are. The samurai, who were some of the greatest warriors in the history of the world, they were fond of cherry blossoms. If you watch The Last Samurai, you will see Tom Cruise's teacher. He was always around the cherry blossoms.
That's right.
And then when he died, he saw the perfect one, and he cried, and he said, "Perfect," because his desire was to finally see a perfect cherry blossom. We're more than masculine, and that's the message. Do you get rid of your masculinity? Absolutely not. Now you become something completely different. You want to become comprehensive, touching on everything that makes you whole. And that's all the message is, man. And when men practice that, we're not saying to become milksop and a pushover. Oh, absolutely not. We need you to be strong when there's a time to be strong. But you also need to be sensitive when someone is in need of your sensitivity. This world needs to see what nurturing looks like from a man, what compassion looks like from a man, what tenderness looks like from a man, what kindness looks like from a man. They already done seen the masculinity piece. That's why they labeled it toxic. Masculinity itself is not toxic. It's only when we allow ourselves to be defined by it do we become toxic. But masculinity is beautiful. And again, it's assertiveness. It's just when it needs to be done at the right moment.
It's just so interesting how wrapped up we are. I mean, I've made a calling, a movement out of talking about manliness and masculinity, but we've become so consumed with it in a lot of ways that, like, I had a guy reach out not too long ago, and he asked something like, I can't remember. I'm really into art, painting maybe, or music. It was an artistic venture, and he asked me if that was manly, and I said it's not masculine or feminine. It's not like it's just something you enjoy. I don't know why you're trying to make it something that it doesn't need to be. If you enjoy painting or creating music or whatever else, like, do that. But we're so concerned with how it may come across or how it may look to others.
Yeah, I mean, you haven't even read it, so I'm just saying.
I know I got it right.
Look,
but I do follow all
what
your
you're
stuff.
just saying, man, is deep, because I talk about this. So this is why I really admire the strength of women. They refuse to allow the culture to define who they are as women. They're anything and everything they have to be at any given moment, especially single mothers. So it was said, during my father's era, that a woman's place is in the kitchen. They refuse to allow that to define them. They says, no, we can be in the kitchen, but we can be here and 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 here as well. As men, we've said we're only masculine. So when you have a boy who wants to be a chef, he can't, because why? Only women cook. A place for women is in the kitchen. A guy who wants to be a gardener. Oh, you like flowers. Oh, you weak. You're soft. Then you look at the industry now. It's dominated. The culinary industry is dominated by male chefs.
Yeah.
You have some of the most talented gardeners are men. Do you see how messed up it is, or how difficult it is to become whole when we allow ourselves to be confined? And that's what happens. And so then you start seeing what would look like a mental illness. a guy who is always bitter and angry and resentful. He's really in a box. I give the analogy of the pit bull terrier. Beautiful breed. But this dog is banned in certain cities. It's feared as a pretty much like a weapon, a very unstable dog. Because what did the majority of the people do with pit bulls? They bred them to become fighters and protectors. The 3 Ps you named for manhood, right?
Yeah.
What happened to that breed? It became very unstable. Why? Because by nature, it is not only a protector and provider. The pit bull terrier is also a loving family dog and companion. So thankfully to several dog rescue initiatives, we're starting to see this more compassionate dog. Do you see it on Instagram? Pit bulls kissing babies and everything. Yes, you don't want to break into that house where that pit bull is.
For sure.
Because he is a protector, but he's also a lover. You understand? He loves his family and compassion, loves playing. When you take that away from a man, when you take what he innately feels is good and tell him it is wrong, he becomes hard. You have to. I used to be it. I was never a thug. I made an acronym for thug. It's a traumatized human unable to grieve. And that's why you see so many guys, especially in gangs, and I talk to a lot of them, they have tattooed tears.
Right.
They can't cry. That's weak, but we can tattoo the tear. But there's nothing wrong with crying when we see a player win a championship and he's crying over a trophy, my man. Not over the loss of a loved one, not over your parent who has Alzheimer's, not over you losing your job, over a trophy that he won and he's crying. We don't say, oh, he's soft. He ain't mad. You never hear that.
No way.
That's why you know it's unhealthy. But then that's why you know that we desire it. And so it's just time out for the garbage, man. It's like, look, let's call it what it is. We've been deceived. We've had terrible role models who were in front of us who didn't know themselves. Now we're at a time where we can have a conversation about this and then do something about it. Not only making our lives better, but those who live with us and those who are in this world.
Such an important message. And that's why I'm so glad that we could have this conversation, because these are the conversations I don't have a whole lot. And the reason why I really respect and admire what you do is because you're talking about this other side of things that so many people don't address that need to. So when we're talking about this war that guys have within themselves, is it just putting yourself in difficult situations, hardships? And one thing you said is you were in an uncomfortable position while you meditate. So you're almost in a way, it seems like, manufacturing the discomfort so that you can learn to develop the skills to fight it. Is that right?
Yeah. So again, the body is going to say, doesn't feel well. This isn't good for us.
Right.
Break this.
Let's do
just
this.
Lay down and cut the lady with the nice voice on as they can keep everything calm.
Yeah.
We want to be able to maintain that calmness in the midst of chaos. So of course, I'm not saying do a certain stretch that's causing you great pain when you're about to tear a ligament. No.
Right.
Just something that's mildly uncomfortable that could get on you, like a little fly is irritating. This isn't peaceful to me because it's nagging me. Get to the place where that nagging is nothing. And so I put myself in those situations. You want to find yourself. It's a matter of fact, it's a story about a monk, and I love this story. He was known for his just being so peaceful and loving, but he stayed in the mountains. So one day he went to the city to buy some tea, and a kid bumped into him, and the tea got on his clothes. He was about to strike and kill the person who did it, the kid. And then they realized that he really hadn't mastered what peace was.
It wasn't tested.
Yeah, it's easy to have peace if you're in the mountains all away from society. That's easy. That's nothing. That's called escapism. And I'm not saying knocking my friends who are monks or study. I'm not saying that at all.
Right.
Because actually a true Shaolin monk tests themselves. Okay? So when you study that side of it, you see that a lot of times they meditate in very difficult positions and stretches. Mm-hmm. That's to deal with that foolishness. But those who feel that just because they're peaceful in these environments that they've mastered it and you haven't been tested. I have a saying, faith is all theory until we've been tested, and so is love. It's all the facade, okay? Allow yourself to embrace the struggles. Then you will become better and stronger. Not avoiding it, man, And so that's all I do in life, the stressors. My wife, we don't get into the big arguments anymore, but there's disagreements. We get on
Sure.
each other's nerves. But I'm not going to walk around like a child and don't speak for a day. Let me reconcile, because I know this woman's intent is not to hurt me. That's because I check my emotions and my pride. Before, man, I could go 2 days without talking to her. No problem. Cool. Do you want me to come to bed? Cool. How you going to punish me with ESPN and the couch? You know what I'm saying? See
Sure.
ya. I'm straight. All I need is a pizza
You're like,
now.
thank you.
Exactly. And so I've gotten to the place now where we're so connected, man. It's difficult for me to move on about my day, and I know that we're at odds. Like we've truly become one. If I hurt her, I'm hurting myself. And that's when I'm like, excuse me, this is real. This is the real deal. And I need to act accordingly in order to go about my day. I can't leave her that way.
Yeah.
And I don't. I can share with her when she wouldn't trust me with bills. I would get angry, man. I remember one time, because we have certain tasks in marriage. And so one of hers is to just take care of the bills. And I wanted to start looking at things more, okay? So I said, well, look, when you fill out the check, I want to sign every check.
Oh, yeah. I could already see this is not going to go well.
And so now this is deep about marriage. So if I was completely in control of, like, again, my wife submits to my leadership. Don't get me wrong. But just say if I was one of those husbands, this is it. This is how it's going to be. Boom. We wouldn't have anything. My wife finds a way to finagle and make us still have a life outside of the bare necessities.
Yes.
And so I said, cool, just let me see, because I think we're spending a little more than we need. Oh, my goodness, it was beef. and my mentor told me to do it. Just that way you'll be more involved in the finances. Woo, was conflict, because I really wasn't conveying the message correctly.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And so she had her guard up.
Right. And she should. That makes sense.
Because what am I saying? I don't trust you. You messing up.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Instead of saying, baby, I have not a fear. I lack confidence in maintaining our finances. Basically, I fear seeing what goes in and out, and I think this is something I need to look at. And I feel I won't be the type of man that God wants me to be until I'm able to embrace every area in my life. How can she not receive that?
Right.
But for me I want to sign this. Basically, let me check to make sure.
Yeah.
It's just like
Do
the
your
boss at
math
the
right.
job.
Yeah, for sure.
They get a stack of papers to the CEO. Okay, this needs to be signed because we made sure. It's like, how you checking another grown woman like that? A grown person, rather. So communication, ruling my emotions, allows me to communicate better. And a lot of times as men, the conflict arises is because our wives have their guards up. Why? Because our words hit harder than our fists sometimes. So a woman's not going to keep getting hit, and she's not going to be approachable because she has her fist up. Want to protect
Well, and we
herself.
know as men, we also know how to use our words to hurt.
Yes.
Right? To be sharp. And I've done that with my wife. I've done that with my kids. I've done that with other people I care about. And I use my words to deliver a punch.
And it hurts. And so what do? You guard.
Right.
And now there's no communication. And so with Nicole, I make sure that I allow her to drop her guard, that no punches are coming from me. You understand? And if a punch comes at you from me, it's to move you in a direction that'll lead you in a better position. I would never try to set you up to hurt you. So when I'm able to convey that, to say, well, man, babe, it hurts that you don't trust me with leading our finances. As a man, I want to give us a better life. and I feel that I can, but I need to be in control of this area.
Right.
Some men can't. You got to know your strengths. And some men, you better be thankful you got a wife that can deal with your finances. And that's a blessing. That's not makes you weak. But
No.
personally, you have to follow your own convictions. And this is something God was telling me. I'm providing a lot of provision through you. You got to understand, because of your wife, you guys do some great things. I would never go nowhere, Ryan. She's the reason we travel and have nice vacations. But she would be the reason we could have vacations every other month, too, if I allowed. You understand?
Sure.
Because she loves it, you know?
Yeah, right.
And if I had the money, we would take a vacation every month if I had the money.
Mm-hmm.
So we play to our strengths and weaknesses. She knows mine, I knows hers. And now we're able to complement each other. Before, I'm trying to fight for this, but without communication or a negotiator in a hostage situation. Imagine having the wrong negotiator. Well, no, you're going to release him right now because that's what I said to do.
Okay. Yeah, that's not going to work out well.
No, it's not. But that's what we tend to do, because why? You're operating in only masculinity. A negotiator is very precise, very comprehensive in communication. Comes off as a nurturer. So what do you want? What do you really need from this? You know, Greg, let me see if I can make that happen. You're hungry right now? Cool. That's what we have to become. But then he has his demands. Well, no, we can't budge on that. You know, that's comprehensiveness.
That's powerful. Well, I love the way that you honor your wife. I see that to a small degree, of course, on Instagram and social media, and the way that you honor her is very inspiring.
Thanks,
it's
man.
It's very cool to see that.
It wasn't always that way. And I like men to see the struggle too. You know, I need to post more about the arguing and or the disagreements now, and how do we reset? And we had a video about that because it was during COVID. We have several friends who are lawyers. And then we studied that nationally. There was an unprecedented amount of requests for divorce being filed since the pandemic. Yeah. And so that broke our hearts, and we did a video teaching people how to navigate through the pandemic. And my wife led a lot of it because, you know, most men, we don't really express what's going on inside.
No.
And the direct messages I was getting from men during that time, they weren't terrified of dying from COVID. They were just fearful of eventually losing it at home. Because there was no club, there was no sports bar.
They were just trapped.
You're trapped, and they literally were about to lose it because they didn't know how to express, baby, I just need some space. And so what I had to do and she had to do, we couldn't go anywhere at one point. I would just walk around the block. Take a ride. Home Depot became Hawaii.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? I went to Home Depot. Oh, wow, this is a cool new tool here. I mean, I was loving it. You know, all I needed was some food, and I was straight.
That's right.
But we all need to know that we all need to get a break, man, sometime. And then when you come back, the love is even stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, Jason, I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you taking the time to come over here and do this. And again, your message it resonates deeply with me. It's overlaps with what I share, but it's different enough that it allows me to see things or in new ways that I haven't considered before. And so that helps me be more comprehensive too. Helps round me out. Because I have a tendency of being more, no, you just do what you need to do and protect, provide, preside, and that's it. And everything else is just a distraction from that. And so to be able to see this side is crucial.
Well, thank you, my man. I appreciate it. And thank you for coming here, man.
Yeah,
you know, I was like, how could I not, show up, and I really appreciate your heart, your desire, your transparency. And I just hope, you continue to do what you do, man, because I'm just one person in something that needs many in a movement. Men need to see different sides of everything. But if we all can be comprehensive, man, this world would change like drastically. And so that's what I hope and pray for. But again, I'm so thankful for this time, man. It really means a lot. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Likewise.